not only within the country but across the entire African continent. Anti-migrant protests have once again exploded in major cities like Johannesburg, Pretoria, and Durban. The country is witnessing an alarming resurgence of xenophobic violence, and this time it's spiraling out of control. What began as protests by groups like Operation Dudula in late April 2026 has rapidly escalated into violent confrontations, looting, and public calls for the removal of illegal migrants. But this is not just about protests, this is about terror. The violence has already claimed lives. Nigerian nationals Amajara Emmanuel and Ekpenyong Andrew were reportedly killed in separate attacks. Foreign-owned businesses, particularly those owned by African migrants, have been targeted, looted, and destroyed. Shop owners are fleeing, fearing for their lives and livelihoods. This is not just a local issue. It is quickly becoming an international crisis, with the diplomatic fallout from these attacks already reaching far beyond South Africa's borders. Countries across Africa are now preparing for retaliation. The Nigerian government, for instance, has already announced plans to repatriate its citizens, with the Senate discussing proposals to nationalize South African companies like MTN as a form of economic retaliation. Ghana has formally petitioned the African Union (AU) to intervene, calling for urgent action to stop the violence and protect African migrants. Tanzania's President Samia Suluhu has taken the bold step of issuing a 48-hour ultimatum for South Africans to leave Tanzania, suspending trade between the two countries in response to the attacks on fellow Africans. Meanwhile, Kenya, Malawi, Lesotho, and Zimbabwe have all issued travel warnings to their citizens in South Africa, urging caution as the violence continues to escalate. As the xenophobic mobs grow in number, South Africa's government is struggling to contain the situation. President Cyril Ramaphosa and Minister of International Relations Ronald Lamola have condemned the violence, calling it criminal and a national shame. But their condemnation is not enough to quell the anger and frustration that is already spilling over into broader diplomatic tensions. The government has also tried to downplay the scale of the attacks, accusing some media outlets of spreading fake videos. However, the damage to South Africa's international reputation is undeniable. The violence is being defended by some local groups who argue that it's a response to illegal immigration, job competition, and rising crime. They believe that foreign nationals, particularly from other African countries, are taking away opportunities from South Africans. But these protests, which started as calls for tougher immigration enforcement, have now crossed a dangerous line. This is no longer about enforcing laws or securing borders. This is mob violence targeting innocent African traders whose only crime is seeking a better life in a country they once saw as a beacon of hope in post-apartheid Africa. The real problem now is that the South African government is failing to act decisively. Instead of taking action to stop the violence, South African police are reportedly standing by. Some even escort the mobs as they carry out their attacks. The African Union and ECOWAS are now facing serious pressure to intervene, but whether they can effectively address the issue remains to be seen. The ECOWAS Parliament has called for an investigation into the violence as it continues to affect Nigerians, Ghanaians, Zimbabweans, Ethiopians, and many others who have found refuge in South Africa. The political instability caused by these xenophobic attacks is now spreading throughout the region as African governments demand action from Pretoria. But there's more at stake here than just diplomatic relations. The underlying issue, the failure to tackle systemic poverty, economic inequality, and unemployment, is what continues to fuel this rage. Xenophobia is an easy scapegoat when economic conditions are dire, but it only serves to deepen the division among the very people who should be standing together. Julius Malema, the leader of the Economic Freedom Fighters, EFF, has called out the hypocrisy of these xenophobic attacks, saying, "How many jobs has xenophobia created?" Malema's words are a stark reminder that this violence isn't solving any problems. It's merely a distraction from the economic failures that have plagued South Africa for years: unemployment, lack of economic opportunity, and inequality. Xenophobic violence only diverts attention from addressing the real issues. The violence and terror are continuing in spite of efforts to hold the perpetrators accountable. Operation Dudula, one of the leading xenophobic groups, has been interdicted by the South African courts for harassment and unlawful demands for documentation. The court ruling is a step forward in trying to restore law and order, but whether it will have any real effect on curbing the violence remains unclear. The damage to the social fabric has already been done. South Africans and African nationals alike are deeply divided, and trust is fast